Triple E EDC back again with another knife video. This is going to be the top 10 folders of 2020. So obviously there's been a couple of knives in 2020 that you haven't seen reviews of on the channel that a lot of people have put in their top 5 knives of 2020. Specifically 2. It's going to be the Quiet Carry Waypoint and the Ferrum Forge Stinger. So I actually haven't checked out either one of those, so I'm going to go ahead and mention those as honorable mentions here. They, by all accounts, are great knives. The Waypoint just hasn't been available, which is why I haven't reviewed it. I probably would have picked one up if it was available. The Ferrum Forge Stinger, honestly, didn't do a lot for me design-wise, or it just seemed like more of the same from Ferrum Forge. Could be that it's groundbreaking in some way. I did not find that Nitro V steel on the platform that it was on was necessarily groundbreaking. I know a lot of other reviewers feel that is the case. I will go ahead and just say, as an honorable mention, a lot of people felt it was the best budget knife of the year. So number one, I don't necessarily think, $95-100 is a budget knife. And number two, I don't feel that it's necessarily groundbreaking in a year that saw several knives with S35VN, knives from QSP, knives from Civivi, that were in the $75 range for S35VN, and then you also have things like the Kershaw Bareknuckle and Kershaw Link in 20 CV that have come out in the under $100 mark as well. So I do not necessarily feel that the Nitro V Ferrum Forge Stinger is groundbreaking. This is not a video designed to bag on it, just sort of explain why it's not in my top 10. Anyway, the Quiet Carry Waypoint, though, does seem by all accounts to be an amazing knife. I do think it's probably going to be a little bit small for me, just by looking at it and sort of evaluating it and knowing knives in general, but I do think I'm going to really like it. But I haven't held it yet, so I can't include it in the list. Honorable mention. All right, next for honorable mentions, we're going to have the Koenig Arius here. Now, this is the first time I've had an Arius. This is not a new knife. Obviously, it's been around for a number of years, but this is the first time they've had the V4, the version 4. And so this is a version 4, and so I'm going to put it in the honorable mention section because this thing is just absolutely amazing. The action on this is crazy good, just absolute drop shot like that. So smooth, and the milling is just amazing. So much attention to detail, and there's so much attention to detail in many ways. If you look in there, I don't know if you can see it, but it'll have the batch number and everything right there. Yeah, Gen 4, batch 3. So it's pretty amazing what Koenig does with the knife, and it's an honorable mention because obviously it's an older knife. Speaking of older knives, this was the year of the 940, and so obviously the 940 is going to get an honorable mention here. It's been around for a while, not necessarily new for 2020, so I'm going to go ahead and give it an honorable mention here. I love the 940. I have a 940 collection. This is not the whole collection, but these are the knives that came out this year. And also the 9400 came out this year as well. It's not on the list mainly because it's just an automatic adaptation of knife that's been around. So that's honorable mention as well. Another honorable mention, and I've got a few of these, I'm sorry guys, but it is what it is. So the Kershaw Blur. Kershaw Blur is an excellent knife. The assisted action on it is actually quite nice. I don't mind assisted on this particular knife. The coloring, the anodizing on this, I think is nice as well. But really what's more important about this is the M4 version. And this came out this year. Putting this knife in M4 just makes so much sense because this is just, the Blur is one of those ultimate users. And so to get it in M4 and to get it for, at the time it was released, I think it was like $75 for M4. Again, talking about how the Nitro V steel isn't necessarily the bargain you think it is at the $95. But M4, I mean, at 75, I think it was $75-80, blows you away that you can get M4 for that price. And for that reason, this is an honorable mention. It would have actually been on my list if it wasn't for the fact that the Blur's been around for so long. All right, let's go ahead and do another honorable mention here, the Benchmade Mini Bugout. So the Mini Bugout is obviously the mini version of the Bugout, and I do like it quite a bit. It is quite small for me. I'm not, I know for many people this is the perfect size. For me, it's a little small. I like, the Bugout is sort of the bottom, the smallest I usually go on knives, so a mini version isn't necessarily going to be my cup of tea. That being said, everything that's great about the Bugout is great about this, so it's just in a smaller package. Next, another knife, the Guardian Tactical Recon 35. So this has obviously been around for a couple years. Obviously, if it was new for 2020, it'd be on the list for sure. It'd probably even be in the top 3. It's that good. But it is, this Reese Whelan version is new for 2020. And since there's a different version of an older knife, I thought, you know, same thing as the M4 Blur and the 940s, honorable mention here on this, because if it was a new knife, I think this actually would be, you know, top 3, top 4 on this list. Next, Appalachian Drifter. This thing is great for the price. Now, the regular versions I think are about $75, and this version I believe was $95. Obviously, you get Damascus, you get the layer G10. Reminds me a lot of the Raindrop CF that you see on the EWC, but this is a double detent knife, and it doesn't do it quite as well as the EWC, but it's sort of here at the end of the year. But this thing is great for a couple of reasons. It just looks great. It has that nice clip point blade, but also this thing is supremely slicey. Stasa did a video on this. Stasa 23, if you're not following him, you probably should. I don't know if you can see it, but the edge on this, he measured it at 8 thousandths behind the edge. This thing is so slicey. In fact, I cut myself on it, kind of sliced part of my finger off with it. It's that sharp. So, you know, this is great honorable mention for this year. Didn't quite make the list though. Last honorable mention, and sorry guys for the so many honorable mentions, but these are so new that I couldn't really put them on the list. I was actually lukewarm on them when I first got them a couple days ago. I've only had them for a few days, but they've really grown on me so much over the last couple of days that I'm going to put them as an honorable mention on this list. I just haven't spent enough time with them to decide if they really should be on the list. So that would be the 2 Spartan blades here, the Spartan Aster and the Spartan Talos. Now, this is a Bill Harsey design. This is a Les George design. This one's way more up my alley. Also, I think the materials are a little bit nicer on this. That is reflected in the price point. This one's like $40 more than this one. But there's a couple of things that really are important about this. One is that this is such a contender against the mini Bugout and the Bugout, being that it's an in-between size of the two, and is 2.3 ounces. So it's that really super lightweight knife, and it fits well in the hand and has a super useful blade shape. The oil-infused bearings, oil-infused bushings that they use in here, I was a little lukewarm on them at first, and they use that in both of these. But I was using, I was carrying this around with a CRK and the Chris Reeve knives. I had my Nkosi a couple days ago, and I had my Sebenza, and it just started to remind me that, you know what, this action feels a little bit similar to that. Not nearly as good, as perfect as that action is, that glassy action, but just the smoothness of it and the, sort of feel of it as it rolls out is a little bit reminiscent of Chris Reeve knives. And obviously you get this at a much lower price point with different materials, but the blade steel on these are great, CTS-XHP, and obviously a great company behind it, Spartan. These are made, again, in Taiwan, I think in association with K-Bar. So, again, I'm not usually a huge fan of K-Bar, but very impressed with these so far, and they are growing on me by the day. All right, let's get into the actual top 10. So, number 10. Going to be a surprise for some people, but the Civivi Bull Mastiff. And this is the full-size Bull Mastiff. Now, I know there's a mini available, but this thing is monstrous. And it is, budget. It's a budget monster cleaver, thing here. And I just love it. Because of the weight of the blade and the bearings on here, this thing is an absolute, smooth drop shut. I mean, if you can't see it with the camera because the camera's a little bit low here, but if I were to stand this up and let it drop, it literally would drop straight down. That's about as good as I can show you guys here, but it just drops straight down. Beautiful, beautiful action. The detent on it is just as good as every other Civivi that you're going to see. And the ergonomics are excellent on this. It has a nice neutral handle here. Civivi's great clip. This thing runs, I think, like 45 or 50 bucks. I think it's about 50 bucks. This thing is absolutely amazing. I can't remember what steel they use on this. I think they use the 9CR. Yeah, the 9CR, which I actually like better than their D2. And I've said this in other videos, but I like the 9CR better than the D2. And the choil on here lets you choke up just really, really well. But really the beautiful thing about this knife is look how thin it is behind the edge for a blade this size. This just comes down to such a thin edge. It eats through cardboard like nobody's business. If you want to choke back on it and use the blade to chop at something, you can. Not that you necessarily want to with the thin edge, but it's just, it just sort of gives you that freedom to do what you want. And you get that nice, that nice action there. I like the fuller here. There is a version of this, I think, called the Mastodon, which is sort of the same thing with a hole in the blade and no fuller. But this double fuller gives me the ability to flick that out. And I can either use, because of the length of the fuller, I can use any number of fingers to flick it out. I enjoy actually using 2 fingers to flick it out. But this thing has been a huge surprise for me. I'm surprised that other YouTube channels aren't covering it as enthusiastically as I am anyway. I haven't done a review on this, but I'm going to, spoiler alert, this is going to be positive because I absolutely love it. Number 10. Number 9 is, surprise, surprise, another Civivi. So this is the Civivi Ortis. This hasn't been around for too long, just came out recently, but this, and I actually thought about putting the Dogma here, but honestly, the big difference between the Dogma and this one, other than a little bit of size, and I prefer the Dogma's size a little bit more, but the biggest difference is the styling on the handle here. So, and there is an upgraded version of this as well, but this is, a little over 40 bucks, and it is, nice bearing action. It has a perfect detent, perfectly crisp, nice choke up as well. Very thin, just like a lot of other Civivis behind the edge over here, and got that nice Civivi pocket clip recessed into the scales with recessed screws and the hardware. It's a little bit sticking up, as you can see, but this is a lot more than you'll get from most budget knives as far as the recessing. And, I think it works great. You can flick it out. Just a great knife for $40-ish. Next up, number 8. It is the Benchmade 945. So the 940 couldn't make the list because it's not new, but the 945 can because it's new. This is the first production, and this thing is everything that's great about the 940 in a smaller knife. I do prefer the larger knife, to the larger 940 to the 945, but, this is great. This is excellent as sort of a secondary knife or a back pocket knife, or, possibly even a 5th pocket knife, even though I don't really use it that way. It's just, it's everything you love about the 940. It's actually a little bit thinner than the 940 is. I don't know if you can see this. Hold on. Let's go ahead and get a 940 out here. Thinner behind the edge, ever so slightly. And, it works extremely well. Just, very tough built, even for a small folder. I'm surprised it took Benchmade so long to do this. Sorry, Warren Osborne couldn't be around to see it, but this is a great homage to Warren. And the clip, a lot of people didn't like the fact that they use a split arrow clip. That was Warren Osborne's design. They did this for a reason. They adapted it to this in order to honor him. I'm going to honor him and keep it on this knife, even though I prefer the deep carry, the mini Bugout clip. Not the mini Bugout, the Bugout clip. This one. Next up is a knife that technically came out in 2019, but came out right at the end of the year and was not something I got until the middle of this year. So that is the Rhea EWC. And this is the knife I was referring to when I was talking about the Drifter, the double detent. So This is the marble carbon fiber version. There's a couple different carbon fiber versions. There's micarta versions. There's all sorts of things. But this is 180 bucks, M390. Just great action here that, you know, you can fidget with all day long. Nice pocket clip. One of the drawbacks to this pocket clip is the vertical alignment, which means it can sort of move around a little bit. But that's part of the issue. I like the fact that they put the Ray Laconico on the spine here, and this is just a really thin, slicey blade behind the edge here. The stock is decently thick, but it comes down to a nice slicey edge. Let's see if I can show that. Come on. Nice slicey edge there. See how it tapers very quickly? Very nice. EWC. Now, number 6. Now, this is going to be a knife that I do not have on the table. I'm not going to, you know, pull it up on a, on a screen just because I don't have my iPad with me. But I'm going to use a stand-in here for it, which is this is the Spyderco K2. Now, the actual knife that I'm going to honor here is not the K2, but it is the Spyderco Canis. So the reason I have the K2 here, it's the only Spyderco that I have currently that is made or was developed, designed by a self-defense. Reeve is a guy who does self-defense knives. So this is, I'm putting this in as a stand-in because Reeve does self-defense. So the Canis. The Canis is a knife, and you guys can go back and look at the Spyderco product reveal. Honestly, I made a little fun of the Canis on the Spyderco reveal. Why'd I do that? Not because it's a bad knife, but because it's a weird blade, and also on top of it being a weird blade, it was very similar to the Yojimbo, and it was higher priced. So, you know, I did a review of it, and, you know, I compared it, at least in my head, to the Yojimbo, which I've owned before, and frankly, you know, they sort of break out almost even, because the Canis, I think, is a little bit better of a knife, but the Canis is more expensive. So it's like $192 versus $140, $150, somewhere around there. So the Canis, though, it makes for an excellent EDC for a Wharncliffe blade. And I just absolutely enjoyed carrying it. It had, you know, the great Taiwan finishes that, you know, the Taichung Taiwan factory is known for. It's just great on so many levels, and I have to eat my words on that, on the Spyderco Canis. It's been a great knife, and I may go back and purchase it so that I can add it to my collection. Next. This is a knife that technically came out a couple years ago, but came out in a new version this year. Now, because this was a complete redesign, I decided to include it in this list, and that is the Benchmade Bailout. So this, honestly, is how the Benchmade Bailout always should have been. The use of 3V I didn't quite get on the original one. I was excited for it for sure, because 3V, you know, was it was first time seeing it on mass production folders for the most part, especially in the Benchmade line. I know a couple other, you know, 4V's been used with Spyderco and everything, but, you know, first time that 3V was really put on a regular production model like that, of a major company. And it was great to see. And I just didn't get it because 3V is known for toughness, lateral strength, you know, things like that. With the plastic scales, you weren't going to be using it in that fashion, so it didn't really make a whole lot of sense. They heat treated it softly. There's some controversy over whether that was on purpose, but this version with M4, which is going to hold an edge awesomely on this thin grind over here, because it is a thin knife, and aluminum scales, which I think, you know, these scales should have been for sure on the original. The idea of the Bailout as a sort of a thinner, lighter knife, like the Bugout, but more tactical, only really made sense with metal scales, whether it be titanium, aluminum, and frankly, you know, aluminum is going to be the more, you know, rugged, affordable one that Benchmade is going to go with, because it's more in line with what they do. Of course, you know, they do aluminum on their 940, for example, which, you know, is plenty rugged. So great to see the scales here. The texturing is awesome. The finishing all around is good. The action is nice. The feel. Now, one of the things I hated about the original was this hump. And frankly, I don't know what it is, but with these scales versus the original plastic scales, all of a sudden I don't mind it. I don't know why that is, but I don't mind it at all. And, you know, they also obviously redesigned this in the back here with a glass breaker and the lanyard hole instead of the full lanyard hole. That I don't mind, but just wow on this thing that the redesign completely changed the knife from what it was to what it is. This is now a very useful knife. I'm going to be carrying, you know, I've been carrying it as sort of a second knife pretty much every day since I've gotten this. I didn't get it that long ago, you know, about a week ago or so. I've carried this, I've carried, you know, these pretty much together with the CRKs. Yes, I do carry 3 knives sometimes, sorry guys. But, you know, I've been very, very happy with this, and I plan on carrying this quite a bit. It's definitely keeping in the collection. Next is the CJRB Rhea. This thing is awesome. Okay, so this is, it's like 35 bucks for the standard one. Comes in D2 and G10, flat G10 scales. This version, I think it was like 50 bucks with the micarta scales, and these are contoured, and it has the RPM 9, which is their proprietary steel, which has basically easier sharpening than D2, but supposedly better edge retention and slightly better edge retention. And it's supposed to be a powder metallurgy steel as well. But the action on this is just so good. It's on bearings. You know, as you can see, it straight drops when you hit that liner lock. And honestly, the design is great because it gives you a full 4-finger grip on this size blade, and you can get right up next to the blade and go. I've broken down, you know, double, triple thick cardboard with this thing. It's great, you know, nice and thin all the way behind the edge here. Very, very nice in that way. It's just an amazing knife all around, and it also comes now in carbon fiber. You know, at Knife Center, I think, has an exclusive in contour carbon fiber, and there's a couple other exclusives, I think, out there as well, and a couple other versions. And this is just going to be, I think, a great knife for years to come. Now we're getting down to the top 3. So my number 3 for the year is a knife also I got recently, but it's so good that I have to put it in my top 3. Now, it was higher for a lot of other people, and, you know, I honestly really, really, really like it, but I really like these other 2 knives more than it, and it's going to probably shock some people that it's not higher, but this is the Protech Malibu. And yes, I do have the titanium version with the Damascus. So I have not handled the aluminum version, just as a preface, but, you know, I have handled plenty of aluminum Protechs, and I do know exactly the build quality and everything that Protech uses with their 154 cm and their aluminum scales. Excellent, excellent build quality. This build quality is similarly excellent. It is a beautiful knife, great in the hand, eminently useful blade shape. Obviously the reverse tanto, it also comes in reverse tanto. This is the Warnclip version. And I think they're coming out with more blade shapes. I know for a lot of people, it has not been available because of COVID. You know, California has had some, where Protech is made, California's had some more restrictive, you know, working restrictions, not allowing people to congregate together at work and things like that, than some other, you know, than some other states have had. So it has been a little bit harder for people working at Protech and for Protech to pump out knives in the volume that I know they want to. I know more of these are coming, not necessarily this version, but the aluminum and 154 cm. I know more of those are coming. I mean, I'm not inside, I don't have inside knowledge, but I am sure more are coming. They just can't pump them out fast enough. But this is an excellent knife. Very happy with it, and definitely deserves to be in the top 3. And I don't contend that, you know, anyone else is wrong who has it as the number 1, and a lot of people do, but this is my number 3. So my number 2 is also a knife that came out in 2019, the end of 2019. Now, the original version of it obviously came out, I think, 2 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, 2.5 years ago. But this version of it, which is an improved version of it and a new version of it, and therefore sort of qualifies, it came out right at the end of 2019. And again, I didn't get it until 2020. And I haven't gotten my review on it. I did promise the person I bought it from that I would make a review as soon as I could. I didn't get to it as fast as I wanted to, but it's so good that I cannot deign to leave it off this list. So that is the Tuna knife NV2. And this thing is, I am flabbergasted that this does not get more recognition than it does. This thing is, you know, at first I got it and I didn't quite appreciate it, but, you know, I've had it around and now for a little bit of time, 5-6 months or something like that, maybe. And this thing is just, it's so good action-wise, so good. And the build quality on it, the titanium, the M390 blade, the hollow grind here, you know, you can see that hollow grind and how it, that compound grind on the end, where it's a flat grind on the end, the nice flats here, just the design of it, the way it fits in your hand, which is, the ergonomics on it are excellent. Everything about this knife is amazing. And the price on it, you know, it's about, I think these run about $225 or $250. I don't remember exactly offhand, but this is, I mean, this is rivaling, you know, knives that are $600 in just the feel and quality. And, you know, it just blows me away that you can get something this good for that price. You know, I know $200, you know, plus dollars is a lot of money for many people and more than most people spend on knives. But this particular one, you know, trust me, as I've said, I have many knives over $500, and this is just as good, if not better, than a lot of them. And it's just, it boggles my mind that this thing doesn't get more recognition than it does. By the way, there is a V3 of this now, and the V3 came out a couple months ago. It is my Micarta version. Mostly, I think they left the design of the actual blade mostly unchanged. This design on this blade is different from the NV1. But the V3 was in my Micarta. The V2 is still being sold. I think it's still available, last time I checked anyway. And if you don't have one, go pick one up immediately if you can afford it. It's that good. And honestly, if someone was saying, hey, this is available, and the Protech Malibu, you know, also became available at the same time, I've got $250, what do I buy? I'm going to tell you to buy this. And I know that's probably not going to be a popular opinion, but this is that good. Number 1. Okay, so this is my overall number 1 for the year, and this thing is just absolutely amazing in every way. And you might have been able to hear what it is from, you know, the opening that I just did on it. But those of you who have one probably know what it is. It's the Demko AD-20. This is the number 1 knife for a couple reasons. One is the solid feel of this, you know, in hand. The ergonomics on this are excellent, like very, very, very excellent. Not only that, but it gives you a nice choke up here. This was available in great blade steels, 20 CV and 3V. This one is 3V. It comes in multiple different configurations, thumb studs, no thumb studs, hole, no hole, both. you know, and frankly, you don't need either to open and close it, because you can use the shark lock here to open and close it. And the shark lock is, it's an innovation that is just, it's amazing. It's a huge innovation, and I hope that Demko starts making a bunch of these now that Cold Steel has been sold. By the way, I don't think there's going to be a Cold Steel version of this, especially since Cold Steel sold to GSM Outdoors. And I think that's one of the main reasons why, you know, when Cold Steel was asked why they hadn't produced one, they said there were no plans to produce it. I think because they were already in talks with GSM to sell, and Demko probably had no plans to sell his design to GSM when he could produce it himself. And so I assume that Demko at some point is going to find some sort of OEM and do a more of a production run of these. But the larger production run. But these mid-techs right now are amazing. This one is in full titanium, and it's just, it's so solid, and, you know, it's a little bit heavy for some people, but it is, you know, so good. It comes nice and sharp. You can see the edge on this thing. Despite the thick stock on it, it comes down to a great edge. The ergonomics are great. You have jimping up on the blade right here. You have jimping back here you can go to. You can fidget with this all day long. It has the quickest open and close of any knife other than the axis lock. Other than the axis lock, this thing is the quickest open and close, possibly even quicker because it's already on the spine and much easier to get to than the axis lock. I know Color Lover had a video about the fastest open and close being the axis lock. This may change things. The one thing that I don't like about this knife, I mean, because even the clip, which I don't usually like Demko's clip, I actually like this clip. Yes, it leaves a bit sticking up out of the pocket, but it is a huge chunky knife. But the one thing that I really don't like about this is the gap between here and here. But this knife is so good that I don't care. And it just, the feeling that when you engage that lock, every single time, you know, it makes you feel like, yes, I'm so happy to have this this knife. And so I know I'm getting very excited, very emotional over this knife, but it definitely deserves the #1 spot. I hope it deserves all the love it receives. And you know, Andrew Demko, you have made an amazing knife here. This is making me want to go get a full tie 80-15. I've actually never held an 80-15, but that's going to be one of the next knives on my list as sort of a big purchase. So definitely loving that, and congrats to, you know, Andrew Demko for making such an amazing design, and he deserves all the recognition he's getting for this design. Hope this list has been great for you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Do me a favor and actually tell me, comment below. Tell me, do you agree with the list? Is there anything on this that you thought, hey, I'm out of my mind? I'd love to hear from you. Let me know what you thought. And, you know, if you want to list your top 10 below, I'd be glad to see it. Thanks so much for watching. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. And, you know, go ahead and like the video as well. Thanks so much for watching.